So I've had this channel for a number of years now. I'm not even sure how many, 3, 4, 5, I don't know. I know there's 114 videos on this channel, and all of those videos are just talking head, me talking straight to camera, with the exception of last week when I decided to do a little experiment. I did B-roll with some voiceover. But to do something a little bit different again this week to continue this experiment, I'm going to be taking Natalie Goldberg's book, Writing Down the Bones, her most famous book. And this book, if you don't know, is a collection of very short chapters, very like mini essays. And some of them are quite philosophical in talking about the writing life and writing in general, the practice of writing. And others are a lot more practical and activity-based, like prompts, that sort of a thing. So for 7 days, I'm going to be picking an entry from this book, an entry that is appropriate for this sort of a challenge. And I'm going to be challenging myself to do one every day for 7 days. So I'm doing my own Natalie Goldberg writing challenge. Okay, so to set the tone for this challenge, I think it would be best to begin with what Natalie Goldberg sort of defines as her general rules of writing. And this comes from the small essay titled First Thoughts. So I know I have previously filmed a video that talks about Natalie Goldberg's rules of writing. And to remind you, so you don't have to go and watch that video straight away, they are 1, keep your hand moving, 2, don't cross out, 3, don't worry about spelling, punctuation, or grammar, 4, lose control, 5, don't think, don't get logical, and number 6 is go for the jugular. Now I want to read out a little excerpt from this essay because I think it's quite important. So she says, these are the rules, these are the 6 rules. It is important to adhere to them because the aim is to burn through to your first thought, to the place where energy is unobstructed by social politeness or the internal censor, to the place where you are writing from your mind that actually sees and feels, not what it thinks it sees and feels. So I'm probably cheating a little bit here because I've actually already done my 500 creative words for the day. When I'm fast drafting, I try to do a bare minimum of 500 words a day or write for 25 minutes, whichever thing I'm feeling. Natalie Goldberg often uses her principle of keeping your hand moving and writing without thinking for however long, 10 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, an hour, as a way to warm up before you go into your actual proper writing. So I've technically already done my 500 words a day, which means that I'm kind of already warmed up, but I didn't write yesterday. So I'm going to use these 6 rules now. I'm going to apply them as I write another 500 words on my novel for today. Something I didn't mention before is that it is Tuesday today. So even though it would have been like really neat and nice to start this challenge on a Monday, I'm starting it on a Tuesday because this is my channel. So I'm going to do what I want to do. But it's super rainy here today. We've had a couple of days of sunshine and it's been really hot. But because of the rain, it's actually quite cool this morning. So I've like got my sweater on. So it's rainy, it's cold, seems like a pretty perfect day to do some writing. You can see I am getting my timer ready. And now I will just go and open my working document. And now I'm not going to be like showing you any of my working document. It's very creatively titled Zero Draft. We just need to scroll all the way down to where I was, which was somewhere, oh my God. So that was quite an interesting experiment. I am a big fan of Natalie Goldberg and I've really allowed her philosophies to really inform my writing practice in many ways. But because it's become so integrated into my routine, it has become diluted to a degree. So it was quite interesting to do that session just then and to really try and follow those rules, which are more difficult than you would think. And I'll come back to that in a second. But what I decided to do was I set a timer for 25 minutes, standard Pomodoro, and I tried my best to follow those 6 rules. So I thought I would probably get like 500 words done in that time, but I actually got 955 words done in 25 minutes. Now, I want to compare this to my writing session this morning, where I wrote for half an hour and only got 500 words done, but a couple of things happened there. So in that first session, yes, obviously I was cold. Like I was cold to writing. I hadn't warmed up my writing muscles yet. So I was warming up while I was doing that routine, but also I stopped during that session to go and do other things, like deal with the dogs, go to the bathroom, get dressed, wash up my teacup. So things like that, these little interruptions during my writing routine, which is really bad. I don't recommend doing that. But I was having a relaxed approach to my first session this morning because I started writing at 7 a.m. and I was just going to kind of let it be this like free-flowing playtime. I think there are a number of reasons why I got so many words done in this second session. Yes, I had already warmed up because I'd already had that earlier session in the day. And 2, yes, I had certainly already warmed up. So I was already like in the story. My brain was already in the story. And I had literally already warmed up my writing muscles. So the words were coming a little bit easier. But it made a huge difference practicing that rule of keeping your hand moving. So just trying to write, really trying to write without stopping ever. There were occasionally a little hitch because I was kind of like, oh, should I use this word or should I use that word? And if I'd been handwriting, I have to say, I would have just gone with the first instinct because you write a bit, the words come slower on the page, obviously, when you handwrite compared to when you type. So I probably would have started the sentence with the words I didn't want to use and then changed over to the words that I did want to use. I think this activity would have been quite different handwriting it. And if I had handwritten, I wouldn't have been concerned about things with spelling and stuff like that. I really wasn't worried about grammar, but a couple of times, I'm going to be totally honest, I made a spelling mistake and then I went back and fixed it. And that is not part of Natalie's rules. Though admittedly, Natalie often, for this very reason, talks about handwriting when you are doing this kind of writing practice, because it eliminates that possibility of like seeing your spell check and stuff like that. Something else that I wanted to say, which was quite interesting, there were a few moments where I was like, this is a terrible sentence, or an action happened and I was like, oh, I don't know if this is like the action that I want to happen, but I just wrote it. But then, because I wrote this thing, then my brain was instantly trying to respond to it, and I came up with something quite interesting. And there is 100%, like I can say this with absolute certainty, there is stuff that happened in that 1,000 words that I don't think I would have come up with that. And there were really nice exchanges in dialogue and observations that I think really came through because I was putting this pressure on myself to follow that first thought. And I was really just trying to get into that space. And I did get into that space where I was dictating rather than creating, where I was indeed seeing and feeling the scene in front of me rather than thinking about what the reader should see and feel. So I really hope that this day one is quite inspiring to you. And maybe this is a bit early in the game to be saying this, but I suspect out of all of the challenges that I attempt this week, this is the one that I would recommend every writer have a go at. Set a timer and try really hard to adhere to these 6 rules and just see what happens. Hi everyone, Editing Tara here. So I know that I presented this video at the start as if it was going to be a 7-day challenge in one whole video, but I just finished editing the content for day 1 and that alone was 10 minutes. And I don't really want to upload an hour-long video to YouTube, and I'm sure nobody wants to watch an hour-long 7-day challenge. So I'm going to break this up into several weeks, and today is just going to be the first day of the challenge, and then next week I'll bring you day 2, or maybe a couple of days depending on how much footage we get. But anyway, I hope this video was inspiring, and I'll see you next week.